Samsung Chromebook laptop, and you can't get HD on Zoom, so that's why I look a little muffled. So
Oh,
I was always wondering why that was. Oh, we're live on YouTube.
okay. This will take me a second because I got to pop out and then share it.
Okie doke.
Sorry.
You're totally cool. I'm going to make sure I share it.
Let's see. Share.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see me.
Why can't I get? Oh, it's giving me a time here. Don't worry, I'll give you a proper introduction once I get this going.
It's all good. That's why I love the live. I'll turn this off so we don't get interference.
Oh. Okay, I should be close to groups. Okay, I am back and actually on.
Awesome.
This is so redneck.
I love it. That's the beauty of live, though. That's what's fun. Just the raw stuff that happens.
Yeah. All right. So from here, I'll cut the audio off. So this will go to FKN, the Forbidden Knowledge, and all that for audio as well. So I'm going to give you an actual introduction. Welcome, everybody, to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. I am absolutely thrilled this week to have a person that I would call a new internet friend, because I literally just met her about 6-7 months ago, and we've added each other on social media. I've watched her interviews. She's watched mine. She's actually been on one with my interdimensional exit buddy, Canadian Spinja. She is an alternative educator. She's the host of the High Vibe Hangout and the Synaptic Circle. And she is also a paranormal experiencer. And honestly, she's just one of the most wonderful people to listen to talk. And I got to say, 50% of that for me is just always the inflection in your voice. You always feel like you have a great intent. And thank you for being on, Heidi Popp.
Thanks, Don. That's really sweet. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I know this was a long time coming. I'm like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you. I guess, do you want to start? And this is one of the things I first saw you on Typical Skeptic, and was one of the things that resonated right away is your approach to your education, like your job as an educator, and being somebody that struggled with. I don't even think I had a problem learning. It just didn't jive with me when I was younger. I listened to the program that you have for the children that you're involved with, and it sounds absolutely wonderful. Do you want to let everybody know about that before we get into the paranormal and the other stuff?
Sure, completely. Yes, I fell into this really after 2020 craziness. I left motion picture and started to focus on my kids and their education, and they were already involved with a Rudolf Steiner type program, like a Waldorf school. However, when things started moving again in LA, even though the Waldorf schools didn't align with me anymore, we didn't follow the same belief systems. We'll just say that. So I wound up, focusing. I didn't go back to set. And I wound up realizing, we need to be the change that we seek. So let's try something new. So got a teacher to do a pod in the backyard. I didn't do the teaching myself at that time. My kids didn't want me to. They wanted their own separate thing. But we were still in my backyard. People came to us. I always hosted parties and everything too. So at one point, we're like, we want to go somewhere else. So I heard through the grapevine, I heard about this amazing learning enrichment center that is Rudolf Steiner based. And I really like Rudolf Steiner's philosophies and things. It's all about the mind, body, will of the child, of the human, and having a human experience. And it's about, the will and a proper child development unfolding. Nothing is forced, nothing is pushed. It's an enrichment center that focuses on the innate gifts that children come here with, and they're different. Every child's different, so there's no fitting into a box. There's no this conformity to make a state test. There's really, let's find what makes this child shine bright and polish it and make it brighter. And that's where I really aligned. And so I go along with the Rudolf Steiner type academics, like the way they deliver the basic arithmetic and reading, the way they do things like that. But I throw in a little bit of the woo woo. Like there's meditation, there's sound healing, there's we talk about just the energy and alchemy and transmuting and the clairs, and we do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really special. Yeah.
Um, how do the kids take to the meditation? And I have a subsection to that because Spinge is actually looking into taking Reiki. Is that something you teach the kids too?
Cool. I do not have a specific class that says this is Reiki, what we're doing. However, they naturally gravitate towards the hands-on and immersive ed. So, I mean, hands-on anything. When we are going through an emotional wave, I always say, put your hand on your heart, or, if there's someone else, if they feel the draw to it, hugs are encouraged and the physical touch is encouraged. And so the actual, like, we're going to start learning Reiki. I'm not doing that, but they do naturally gravitate towards their natural state of being, which is bliss. And, it is in that state. So I just try to teach them to pay attention to their frequency, what they're putting off, and how can they recalibrate that. And then I show them the difference of coming into a room full of bright light, positive mood versus a negative mood. We cover that kind of stuff. So and when there's trouble in the world, and they bring those troubles to the classroom with them from home because their parents might watch the news or something, you can sense their overwhelming, oh, I'm a child, there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, but you can, your energy is enough. And so we work on putting out, this mass beam of beautiful energy to the planet. So those kind of things is where they're
Yeah.
naturals. They know
Yeah.
what to do.
I recall hearing you on another podcast talk about some of the breakthroughs that you've had with what would be considered special need or differently abled children that likely really would have struggled in the, cardboard cutout military complex public school system. And I just find that absolutely amazing that you can have these breakthroughs with these kids because you're taking such a natural approach because that's where their minds are functioning. I, I don't know if you're able to share any of that
Sure.
because
I can in a chunk. Yeah. Yeah, well, like, I'm thinking too when I was talking to Canadian Spinja. I love that episode, by the way. I know she's there. Hello. Um, yes, and there's 2 children in my class that would be considered special needs. So and those children I had last year in my classroom are gonna be with me next year. We go together through the grades. So you really develop with them. So when I stepped in, their educator was leaving and I stepped in and took over this class. I immediately noticed one in particular. He didn't make eye contact, he didn't write, he didn't draw, he didn't do anything, but his presence was welcomed. And that, that's enough for me at the starting point. So when I do a meet and greet in the morning, I always make eyes and do a handshake or a greeting or a hug, and he could never make eye contact. And so I knew the challenge with him was not that I was going to get him to produce work, like to make a main lesson book, but I wanted to make sure he felt comfortable. And I was determined to turn the light on. And now I can't dive deep into the families because they can choose whatever they need to choose to do. So however that light got dim and however he got in that condition, he did, and it just is. I can't correct anyone, or I lean towards detoxing and things, but however that situation occurred, that occurred. But what I did know, what I learned by trying and doing was finding what made this boy illuminate himself. And he got really into music. He had rhythm, he had a beat. And one of our instructors at the Learning Center, he has a hand pan, like a Nova drum, and at recess, he would play it. just in the background. And this little boy would just gravitate towards him. So I was like, huh. And even that educator and I would talk, at breaks and things, and be like, would you like to let him borrow that drum sometimes? I go, Abs, can he try? This boy got so into it. And that his parents were even like, what is this drum? She calls me from home and she goes, what is this that he's doing? And I told him, and she wound up buying him one for Christmas, and he would bring it in like that was his backpack, because he didn't have supplies. He didn't write. He didn't do stuff, but that was his school. That was his work. And so when he would get a little restless, or I realized, his attention span was waning, I would ask him to play some music for us. And that would just give him a task. And the more you empower a child, this is the point of it, the more you empower them and find what they're good at, and let them show off their strength, empower them by their a special skill, the light starts to come in naturally. So he, by the end of the year, we're saying, our greetings, he's making eye contact with me. I don't know if any changes are happening at home. I'm still looking at the lunch, and I'm like, okay, he's still subscribing to maybe a not so healthy lunch, but he is making my eyes. He is communicating clear, like he is a part of the class, and he found his niche. And it was really a beautiful thing. So basically, the bit of working with those kind of children is the empowering them. What are they good at? And letting them do it, and giving them the space to do it, and giving them a task that they can complete. So every time he was able to complete that music for our session, it was like packs his thing away. He like completed something. And it wasn't anymore like, I didn't finish this work, or all these children are making drawings I can't finish. And you could see him get defeated. But this was empowerment. And that was really cool. Same with he did write and do stuff, but he needs to be in the dirt, in the mud. And so we'd let him take his shoes off and put him in the dirt, or play in the mud for a while just to recalibrate him. And then he's back, and then he can start writing again. So yeah.
The Spinja just whispered in the background, sign me up. uh, well, you were mentioning earlier that there's like the spiritual aspects to the education program that you're involved in. Now, is that something in the construct of the center you work at? And like, what drew you into that? Like, I don't know much about the Waldorf schools or any of this as a construct itself, so I'd love to know more.
Sure. I think you would really like Rudolph Steiner. There's several people in our communities that don't even have children, that talk about some of his teachings. And I mean, it sounds cultish to even say it like that, but the reality is there's a tap into the multiverse. It's common to talk about, oh, your angels are with you, or guardians, or it's in there's a power within of just being human, and keeping your body and your meat suit so intact that you have gifts. And that's talked often about. As far as the curriculum goes, where I got a little standoffish, even because I was presented with teaching these third graders creation stories that came from either the Bible, or and I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. They're like, trust me, it's not about the religion, it's about the lesson behind it. So to make myself fall into the lesson more, I found some Native American folklore that was the same, and all mythology. Next year we go into Norse mythology, and there's Greek mythology. They cover it all, because they want to show children not like this is a religion. They're just showing. So these are the stories that have been passed down for generations, and the moral of the story is this, and what can we learn from that, and it wound up, started to see the beauty in all these things. And what Steiner did is, per grade there's a child development level, these stages of development they go through, and there's always literature from our history, whether it's true or not. There is a story arc that is appropriate for the developmental age. And so, like last year, third grade, and the 9-year change is all about practical skills and building and survival and structure. And so these stories come about a sukkah and walking the desert. Jewish people walk the desert and they build sukkahs. So we built a sukkah, or I mean, when we go into Norse mythology, that is when you start realizing these humans got these powers, but then they become at war. They take things. There's, it's this strength that comes about, and sometimes anger, or sometimes, riches, and it's no longer like survival. It's more like amassing more. And then the Norse mythology gods, they do talk about these levels of, what could be heaven and hell. It's really fire and ice. The tree of life. It's all in there, and it's all in these stories that are passed down from all these different cultures. So we kind of bypass religion and culture, and we just talk about humanity and the different stories, and the lessons come from that. Yeah.
I absolutely love that, how you just kind of like take the religion out of the point of the story. Like I've told this on the air before, so I really don't care if I say it again. I was once pretty much permanently uninvited from family functions on one side because I made the reference of the Care Bear, or the Bible being an overwritten episode of the Care Bears, basically. And it didn't go over well at the Catholic dinner. I,
That's funny.
I
That's
don't
cute.
get that
Yeah.
aggressive with my beliefs anymore. I did it because I was the rebellious teenager and didn't want to be there.
Aw.
But
But
yeah,
that's where teaching these kids come around. You should be able to have those conversations with your family and still be accepted and loved. And so that's where I'm working at, of raising a generation where they hear a different set of beliefs and they're just like, huh, interesting. That sounds a lot like this. And they find a common ground, because this whole, like, you don't think like me, you're out. I mean, we saw so much of that in 2020, in 2021. And that's when I knew the pivot. I'm like, I don't need to go back to motion picture. I want to use my life's work so far and work on empowering children to change the future. And so the compassion alone of you just hearing you say that, I mean, could have brought a chuckle, or could have brought like, hey, I can see how you see that.
yeah.
End of story. Not a battle and you can't come back. I'm sorry you went through that.
I laugh at it now, so it's okay. Um, but sticking on the topic of spirituality, like, have you always been fairly spiritually aware and of like the energies of the universe? Because I've listened to you talk before, and you and I actually have had some offline discussions about the paper I wrote and things like that. But we'll get into that later. But I'd like to know, like, how far back does this whole connection to spirituality go with you?
Well, it must go, I mean, to my childhood, because I did have some of those experiences where I felt like I was experiencing orbs and, pixies and fairies and Bigfoots and that mythological creatures and things. And my mom never shunned it. So I was very open to these things. But as a child growing up, my mom was opening herself up. She was really into the Theosophical Society and like Course in Miracles, and anything she could really get her hand on to just kind of crack open a little bit. That was her thing. And I was around it all the time. So I mean, the 90s, I remember traveling with her to Harvard or Princeton, and someone she liked was speaking, like the early conference days. And I use those opportunities. I would just walk, and I drew and I sketched and things. And but she'd be attending, and I could see the bright light. I'm like, oh, this is neat. And she would never, she's like, it's not culty, it's not religious thing. I'm just soaking in knowledge, ancient knowledge, and it's activating something in me. And that's how she would say it. And so I'm like, huh, interesting. So when I went through dark periods in my life, what's interesting is now I look back and I go, wow, my higher self was always with me. Like I would always have voices in my head, but I didn't know what they were. And I just thought everybody did. But now my research is showing me that I was being guided through all these parts of my life to either get the lesson from it or to suffer. And so for that, I think that's a spiritual journey right there. So yeah, absolutely. And then just coming across things, I had to get through something, you have to look at it in a multidimensional way. Otherwise, you're stuck. And so that became something that I just had to do to get through some really difficult times in my life. So I think since childhood is the answer.
Yeah. And I find it interesting because for me, it was later in life. Like, I kind of like went about it. Like, I saw with a group of other kids in 93 or 94, I saw like what could be described as the Phoenix lights over a military base in Ontario, Canada. And this went on for like an hour. And we just had paranormal experiences. It didn't really click, but then all of us kind of went the same way. Like we didn't really latch on to religion, but we believed that there was something bigger than us. Right. And
Yeah.
I don't know, paranormal experiences and spirituality tend to go hand in hand because they do often tend to line up.
I agree. When we got to the point of my teens and it was more like ET now and crafts and things, that was my mom again. She was having those experiences, witnessing ships and loss of time. And she started studying that kind of stuff and downloads and, getting this connection. And she would say, there is an intelligence out there greater than humans could ever be. It's a super high intelligence, whether it was, a gray bean or something. She didn't do that, but she just believed that there are other forms of intelligence out there. And it's not like she was trying to make contact. She just became, the veil was very thin for her already. And you know what I have to say, when she was a little girl, her whole life, she was raised a super strict Catholic. And she had those nuns beat her up, and she wanted to be a nun. So she went through schooling almost all the way until she met my dad, who was like this South Side greaser guy, like, come on, baby. And she left that world, but she was the staunch Catholic. So I feel like she was already kind of trying to, but she was obsessed with it because she's like, this couldn't be all it is. Like the nuns beat me, like it didn't make sense to her. Yet she was in it because she's like, no, I'm going to change this. And then it went over to the next religion and the next religion. And then the veil got so thin that she's like, what else is out there? So being around it, it was like the runoff for me kind of, but I remember those days because I was coming around going, I'm scared. I'm having experiences at night that I don't understand and they don't feel good. It's not like fairies and Bigfoots where I felt like this is magical. I didn't feel threatened. I started to feel threatened. And then I could see her shift. And she's like, okay, this is a new form of study and there's some darkness here. And this is not a positive situation. And had to start realizing it's not all lovely and angelic. There's other things there. And there's also a military involvement. Anytime our government and the human gets involved, there's science and hijacking and, really wanting to figure out the magic code or the magic thing about it. And and when I was in my teens as well, and maybe you as well, I think this would be the late 80s, 90s, all the stories coming out like Dateline and everything was about like everyone around the world getting scoops, or that thing. And then Communion came out and it was just like, they're getting us. And so we had this juxtaposition of like, but it was beautiful, but it's dark. So what is this? And she kept going, nosedive right into it. She, had this experience with her womb being hijacked, and that she didn't tell me at the time, not when I was young. But she went so far in, and my dad let her. My dad was not interested. He just wanted us all happy, and he was just doing his thing. He's like, oh yeah, she got him on spiritual route as far as meditation, getting sober, all these things. But the woo woo, he, even when they were on the pier seeing ships, he would get knocked out. And she would say, oh, that was only for me, because he was present 1 minute and then she'd look over and he'd be like, and then it would be over and he'd be like, are we going to see anything? And meanwhile, she's like crying because she just had this contact with the ship. And so she's knew he's not there. But he didn't dismiss her. So it was really kind of, we were able to go to those deep levels. And I did have a sister around. She was just not there. She was out in the fields drinking with her buddies, like she wasn't present. So, yeah, I don't even know where yeah, it could get a little spooky and dark, but there was never a moment about this as a cult or a religion. It was this huge thing that's way bigger than us. And it was actually just fascinating. I had to learn quickly though to not, I mean, the fear took me over those summers. I was really in a fear state. After I read Communion, I got really freaked out of the shadow beings. I would, not be able to talk in my sleep. I felt like I was heavy chest. And then this lightning that would go off in my room. And then I would go, that would be at our summer home in Wisconsin on the peninsula, where a lot of people would have these contact. And then I'd go back to the Chicago area and go to school, and it would be out of my mind unless I saw like a beautiful blue orb in my room or a figure. Like I would have that happen. So I'm like, what do you want from me? Like, what is this? And then I had a huge chunk of time. It was just nothing. It was dormant. It was all, I was living in that, like just figuring my life out, ego world, and nothing happened till later. So kind of jumped around there.
No, I think that gets me where I need to be because, like, at what age was your first paranormal experience? Because I've noticed with a lot of people that I've talked to, it's usually around between the ages of 4 and 6. Generally, it's 5. I know even with myself, it was 5, right? The first unexplainable one I had where I got walked out of my house and went through like basically a mercury orb in my yard and with 2 men. But like, yeah, that was a whole other thing. But like, what age was yours at? Was
Yeah,
it
I when I started speaking over a year and a half ago, it was like, oh, it's about 5. But I had to do some digging because I realized we were in Portland, Oregon, and Mount St. Helens, and I had to time it around that because my experience with the Bigfoot and the theories was about 81. So it was 80, 81, and I'd be 6 or 7. And that's when I would have these, like, I thought everybody did in the backyard, like golden orbs of light and pixelated fairies and, not the trickster. Well, they were tricksters, but I, again, didn't feel threatened by them. I felt a part of that commune. I mean, people have said, I'm an elemental fairy myself. So maybe it was just one with my pals. I don't know. But I felt that presence. And then a Bigfoot sighting, which my mom would say I always must have been operating at a frequency where I could see something like that as a multidimensional being. And so that was that age. But as far as the grays and potential abductions, everything is speculation, right? That was my teens. That was like 12 to 15. And that's when it was like, what is this? Like I was freaked. I felt this bum rush of energy anytime I went outside. Forget about walking to a car by myself. Even though we had a tiny, you could just throw something at us right there. I couldn't walk around by myself. I always felt like something was coming at me or attaching or, and it didn't feel good. And so that was my teens. And then the experiences would happen later, in my 40s. And there was, more ship encounters and, calling in and contact in that you would just connect. If this is for me, make this motion and it would happen. And be like, holy shit, yeah, I called that in. So it was kind of throughout the life, but it would start as early as about 6-ish. That's where my recall. My first 5 years of my life, I have zero. I still cannot to this day get anything out of that. Now, was that a walk-in thing? Who knows? But I think it was just this chunk of time that we were in Texas then, and I don't have any recall except when we found our dog. And I saw Superman. But the
that?
movie, not
Oh, yeah.
actually.
No. Well, it was interesting because with mine, like I had just seen ET, so of course everything that happened to me was just because I watched a sci-fi movie. So that's how that got written off. And then I got much older and went, no shit, that happened. And
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. The
um,
write-offs are painful though, right? I mean, that's a painful thing. That's what I don't want to happen with kids today. We got to listen.
well, yeah, exactly that. Because I remember I was having experiences, and it's like, oh, you just watched too much TV, or you read a comic, or it's something silly you thought up, and it's like, okay, but why are my pajamas all wet on the bottom? It was that kind of thing. No, I was actually outside, right? But
Yeah,
uh,
and you're on your own. Yeah, go ahead.
no,
Mhm. Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that's what I want to change. I want to change that, and then with having a son now, I just want to hear about, I don't know if you saw that. We found an old sketchbook and he was about 5. And my mom translated it for him, and it was about these orbs and portals and it was really, I was just like, when I found it, it was pretty golden to find. And he was trying to translate best he could, and she was verbatim. And she would always come out and fly out and stay with them for long periods of time. So I was a single mom working on set, and she spent a lot of time with him. And he was also at that time when he learned how, when he was able to speak, telling me about these lizards in his room. Or he'd come out of his room terrified and saying, there's a turtle who had a shell crawling around. Or if I'm with him in a room and all of a sudden it's like somebody, like, he just panics and freaks, and he's telling me something's peeking out and scaring me, and I don't see, and I'm like, it comes to find out he's very lizardy and reptilian-y and all that, it got me to the point where I'm like, he is seeing through the veil, and he's getting scared. They're hijacking his fear. I saw that freaking movie. Which one was that movie? Do you remember that movie? Monsters
Monsters
Inc.
Inc.
When
Yeah.
Yes, and then I was like, that's what they're doing. They had all the swag, and I like threw it away. I'm like, oh, they're hijacking his fear.
Uh,
So yeah,
Somebody
craziness.
recreated that door here in Calgary. Well, in Calgary, I'm about an hour away. But there's just this public access door, and I don't know what it goes to, but somebody made it like the Monsters Inc. door. It's,
Wow.
I won't go near it. It's creepy as shit.
It's
Um,
really creepy.
uh, we were talking about energy and frequency earlier, and something that I've been kicking around lately, and I was just talking about on the panel at the FKN thing the other day, is everybody talks about it, the ascension or the separation or whatever. I have a theory that that's actually going to be like, you and I know that we can only perceive certain frequencies with our bodies, right? With our eyes and our ears and whatever. I honestly think what's going to happen is high vibrational people will reach an emotional frequency that will no longer be perceivable to lower vibrational people. And it actually kind of got accentuated this the other day. We went in, we don't go to Walmart because we don't really care for it. We went to a redneck Walmart here in Alberta, and we stuck out like a sore thumb. Like, I had the floor walker following me. I had the janitor come and check as soon as it was crazy, Heidi. Like, and it's not like they were bothering us. It was like they were like, what the hell are they? Like, we stuck out, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't go into public much, right? We just like order our stuff and go pick it up or whatever. But like,
Mhm.
I'd love to get your take on that. Like, do you think part of the ascension or the separation is literally just going to be a change in our ability to perceive one another because it's just going to be that fast a difference?
I I 100% feel that, and I think it's happening now. Like, that's what it is now. If you can get to that point now, like, I feel that I immediately think of being on set. That's the Hollywood days, because I have worked with people that are questionable, are they human or not? But also, you just are, if you're at emitting a certain frequency, people can't even look you in the eye. It's like you're not even there, and vice versa. You also can have some of the low frequencies get attracted to you, but more often than not, it's like you keep passing each other, and it's like you're in walking in the same room, but you're literally in a different frequency. It happened too. I watched it happen with mom groups, as a lot of us moms aligned with a certain way of thinking and feeling and being, we just started like boats passing in the wind. But it's being on set where I really learned to practice it, because if my frequency started to lower, then I could see more of the darkness come up. And it's not everywhere. I'm not going to go into my huge Hollywood rant, because I do protect it and saying that there's a very small percent running the show, but there's a little bit of everybody working there. And so when I'm at my highest tune, I can see more of the others. And that's how I found the others on set. And with that, you see, wow, this person just cannot come up and meet me up here, and vice versa. But I also feel like there's not a level to stop. We can keep that going and keep that vibration going. And I tell you now, working with children, they are naturally at that highest frequency. That's why when they're coming into this planet, they immediately start infecting them with, human interference, chemical, whatever it is, taken away from the mom, anything you can do to keep that frequency down, because they come in a beacon. And so that's the work. That's the work of the New Earth education system, to me, is getting those lights turned back on, because I believe they can, based on working with those children that are, whatever they want to label them as. But getting them cleared out from what happened to them, but also turning the light back on and getting it even brighter and brighter and brighter, brighter than before. And as a child, it can be so empowering that, to me, a small group of children with their lights shining bright is like equivalent to hundreds of adults. So to working on these kids vibrations is so important because it can transcend, it can spread really quick. And yeah, that's my
I agree with that, and I want to go towards the paranormal with that too. Is do you think that that's one of the reasons higher vibrational people do see like UFOs and have more encounters is we're able to perceive things like if you use the idea of the veil, I think the higher the vibration, the thinner the veil, the more you'll experience and see. Do you think that's valid? Because like when I was listening to you talk about, this was a fairly happy childhood and you were having paranormal experiences with fairies and Bigfoot, you would have been a very happy child, right? So of
Mhm.
course you're experiencing the full wonderment of everything you can perceive. Would that be fair?
I'm with you on that. Exactly. And what's crazy is, though, those teen times, I was very happy as well, as far as our family, as far as being fortunate to be where we were and we were on the water and all that. It was just a hot spot. And I also felt like a target. There could be a DNA harvesting going on or hybrid program thing going on. So we're targeted for our high frequency too. So that's another war right there. But oh my gosh, I absolutely feel that because when as an adult, when everything came back online and I started to able to play with the energies or have that contact, I was sober too. To me, that's an important one for my vessel because I was able to discern, is this genuinely what I think it is or not? And those were some of my favorite moments because I in sound body mind, I was having those moments. So I I am never going to be in denial or doubt my experiences because I was like, nope, now I'm an adult and having this. Like, this is happening.
No, and I'm glad you're talking about being targeted for the higher vibrational frequencies. Stephen from BG Cast has brought up the conversation a couple of times, and we've had it back and forth, like me, him, and I, about the testing. And there was some random tests that a lot of us got in public school, and then a lot of kids didn't. And like I was taken out for listening exercises, and it was only like with 7 other kids, and given tests that the rest of the school wasn't given, and they're like, oh, it's just a hearing test or it's a vision test. And it's like, well, then why isn't the whole school doing it? I actually think that's what they were doing, was checking our frequencies. And we can go down the rabbit hole of public school system and military industrial complex. They have their thumb in that and they can test whoever the hell they want. And they just kind of have to
Totally.
turn. Do you think
I
that's
think
pretty?
I totally think that is. I don't remember how. I remember taking like tests in a way, but never for anything special. I didn't get pulled out. I was a very average kid. I was also very quiet. It was insanely quiet till I didn't cause a rustle. So whether I was being protected in that sense, like I didn't cause anything until high school, and then I really blossomed, and I was like on stage and doing all my things. But I was really like this. But I remember talking to Arkeem about that, and what resonated with me is I remember tests. Like I remember people doing that in different rooms and you get put in different classrooms. And I just don't remember mine. I didn't have any involvement with that, but I do feel like it happened. And I also was picking up on a lot of, now he's a lot younger than me, but it felt very generational too, like very 80s. Very 80s. And that was I mean, of course that's when my early elementary and stuff, so I can't help but think that, but it did feel like there was these targeted generational things. And there's something though with the alignment of my mom and like whether it's DNA or a frequency, whatever it was, I kind of just feel like there's that connection too. So it could just be something runs in a family. I haven't dove too deep, but there's testing. I think they're targeting. And someone, Dave Emmons, was just telling me too. Once you have that initial contact as a child, you're marked for life. Whether you have a physical implant on you or not, it's your frequency that they already have tapped into. And they can find you anywhere in the world. So that's where I'm like, hey, everybody, I'm playing nice.
I think you touched on something there too with being generational, because if you go by Dolores Cannon's understanding of it, the baby boomers were the first wave, Gen X was the second wave, and then our kids is the third wave. right? And it really does seem like, okay, we all know what happened in the 60s. Like they almost, I think they almost had it. And then, all the natural medicines get taken away, and the CIA brings in cocaine and heroin and,
Boom.
lowers the vibration on everybody and drops it back down. You have the Gen Xers that were literally being tested in public school. And then you have like kids like Spinge's son who are just inundated with technology. Like it just constantly seems like whenever it's supposed to be one of these uplifting waves, there's always something to try and interfere with them. And I know you have a son in around the same age, so I was just wondering, like, do you see him getting pelted with this technology? And it almost seems like it's set up for them to fail now with it.
Totally. He's a lot younger. He just turned 11 this week. My daughter will
Oh,
be 14 soon. And she was more tech in the beginning too. But what I have two thoughts on this. So, one, yes, there's a dumbed down tech thing and they're messing with you. But just like the testing on us in the 80s, they're also looking to see who are the kids that get it. Who are those kids you're going to see in front of that acrylic clear thing that can go like this and captain a bunch of ships. Like they're looking for their teams too, and who can they recruit? So it's more of like, sure, those kids will be dumbed down based on also what they're eating, what they're doing, how their family life is, why they're escaping, or are these guys tech kids bringing that advanced tech in with them when they come in and they're just like right at home? Because that's where I get a little tripped out with my son. I'm just like, how did you know how to do that? Like, what are you doing? Because we do have limited time, but he is just like, and my daughter, she's really into it, and I'm trying to balance the 21st century with the holistic with her, because I don't want her to stop, because she's finding joy in like editing and making little tapes and animations and things. But where they get you, is the chat rooms and that kind of stuff. So, but there's also what we were just talking last night is, the way the imagery goes so fast and it changes their development. So it's a war. It's a war. But I'm like, they want to see who are our next gen intergalactic fighters or something, because there's something crazy there. Hmm.
I I think you're there too, right there too. And another part that I kind of pieced together was actually off of South Park of all things. Um,
I love South
is
Park.
the dopamine addiction that they've got us with our tech now. Because, like, okay, if you are
Yeah.
playing like the instant swipe games, ooh, I built the Simpsons City or whatever, right? But even on like social media, I know when I lose a follower or somebody thumbs down my video or tells me I'm an asshole. I already know, but like, it's also instantaneous now. Like you. You never used to know all the time how everybody in the world felt about you. And I don't think we're supposed to, right? At
I
least
know.
not in
I
this
know.
direction, right?
Yep.
Like it
That's yeah.
seems. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. Well, no, that's why they say to give it a break, like turn it off and get out, because you'll realize, oh yeah, it's not so bad out there. Or, oh, people are really nice. They're grooming. It's all grooming, and it's like I did this episode on AI tech because I was so poo-pooing AI, and then I wound up making an intro for myself with it. And I'm like, I can see how you can use the tech and not let it use you, but you've got to make sure you have to have the willpower and a clear meat suit and mind body to be able to shut the laptop. And that's the key, because even with a light and with the zapping and all this, take a break. But we're trying to deliver a message, but we all know, yeah, I'm going to go ground myself after. Same
Yeah,
goes with kids. We have to teach them that, and they're not getting that. They're getting parents who don't know how to parent, and they're just, that's the parenting, is the screen. I'm like, okay, I teach them it's a weapon. I was talking about with Canadian Spidge about that. We had that whole talk, but it has to be treated like a treat and a weapon and a resource. Hmm.
I the only part I think absolutely, like, I've seen some amazing things. Your intro is awesome. I've seen some really cool pictures. But when it comes to the kids, I listen to them like, oh, I use Chat GPT or whatever, and I did this, and it's like you are going to like neutralize your own creativity if you don't do some of it yourself,
Yeah,
right? Like I, I
exactly.
I think it was Jen Hellcamp posted on social media. She's like, I wanted AI to vacuum my floor and clean my dishes, not write my stories and paint my pictures. right?
Yes, that's perfect. That's beautiful. Exactly. And that's why I love too our learning center, not to keep bringing it back to that, but the one teacher with the elder kids, it was my kids class, they make their own textbooks and everything, but they have to turn in essays and they get subjects and things, and this one guy got called out. She goes, do it over and do not use chat gpt. Like, she just knew, she didn't feel the human behind it. She's like, I'm sorry, we have emotions and the soul for a reason. I want to see your soul on the paper. And good educators can spot that. Other educators are just, they're just tiptoeing their way through life. They're just like, yeah, whatever, it's a paycheck. Others are like, no, 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 go to the library, do this, double check your resource on Google, sure, or find a map or something, but I want to see soul behind your words, because that you can never ever mimic that. Even my intro thing, the whole song, that's my poem, like that's my words. If you go to my YouTube, it's just my intro. So I'm like, oh, it feels like me. And yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love your intro. And you're talking about kids. I'm just going to have an uncle brag here. My nephew got away with something during the pandemic, and my sister is a school teacher. Okay. This young man got away with something for months. He was just screenshotting and sending in his blank assignments because everything was online, and he just spent his day playing Xbox. It took them 2 months to realize that all of his assignments were blank. So, like,
No.
at 7:55, I won't say my nephew's name on the air, logs into school, screenshots it, and goes and plays video games all day.
Wow. Hey, you know what? Clever.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking.
like, good for you,
That's
buddy. You got
another
away.
thing. Well, that's another thing too, and I think you were saying, like, I was a very average student. I did not soak everything in. I still, if I go to even conferences and I'm in a room, and I will be nodding. I can't take in something that is not in alignment. And so some of these kids are just like, this is bullshit. Why am I learning this? Like, and they're cleverly like, well, I get joy out of here, the dopamine. I'm going to go over here where I get the hit. But if it was exciting, if it was a classroom where they're like, yeah, I know I can go do my screen later and game later. I want to do this fun class right now. That's what's missing. Because otherwise he wouldn't phone it in. He would be interested. The whole thing when they went online, it woke so many people up, in a good woke, not the fake woke, because they're like, whoa, 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 what is this? What is this? Like, what are we doing? And so that was, we have to give gratitude for that whole era because of it.
Uh, my my youngest daughter Google graduated because of that.
The
I,
Google
I I'll,
graduate.
I'll call it I'll call a spade a spade. I watched her do it, and I just didn't have the time to stay on her because I was working full time. She was online schooling and basically Google graduated. I just did nothing but shake my head. I was like, okay, if that's the way you want it, you're
you
gonna
know
regret that you didn't learn anything. But
yeah, it's a fine line. And talking recently about this really in depth, I had to go there because you can't help, it's that programming that we have of comparing ourselves to others. So I'm always like, oh, are we supposed to be further along or somewhere else? And even our learning center gets a lot of dark loosh on it because of the vibration we have. And you hold a certain vibration, some people are going to leave and not be happy, and others are going to be they're going to get it. They're going to get the point, and that's raising a strong, empowered human to go into society with determination and goals and a passion, and they're going to bring a business of service to others. And there's a bigger picture, whereas the schools are set up for immediate gratification. The grades, like, we're not even doing a grading system. My daughter, she did her final for seventh grade, and she got it back with an NP, and that's or oh no, an NY. And I talked to the teacher, and she goes, that means not yet. I need her to show me more of her, because she was just little blip blip blip. She goes, no, 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 talk to me. Finish your questions. Tell me why you're thinking that way. Even because there's not like there's a right answer. She goes, I want to see what you learned this year. So my daughter sat with it, and the page filled up. It was her voice. And that's when she gets like the pass. But the lady's like, I'm not going to fail you and not get you to go to eighth grade, but this isn't you. She's like, no, no, no. You had anxiety. I watched you during the test. my daughter freaked out, she's watching the clock, and she went out of body, and she goes, get back in your body and show me what you got, and gave her the space and the time to redo it. And she's like, you knew the work. Why are you hiding it? Because we get pressure. Even in a little homeschool enrichment, there was pressure to get it done that day. And I realized I had to work with her on pressure and anxiety and really bringing it into her soul, like, and the pressure hits to go within. And so what did we do? We kicked up this summer. Like, she's in water polo and she's kicking ass. And it's like, I see her getting back in her body and she's getting more confident. And I'm like, this is going to help for her anxiety next year, for her schoolwork. And educators that can do that can say, no, not yet. You're not there yet, but you will be. And I know you can be. Try again. We're missing that everywhere else.
Yeah.
So.
Well, she knocked it out of the park on her appearance on your show. So I just.
Yeah, yay, Charlie.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask too is, like, once you become spiritually aware, how did you find yourself starting to work with your own energy? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think trial and error. I started noticing when things were going wrong in my life or very difficult, what was my state of being? And when I made that connection, and then when I noticed when things were going amazing, what's my state of being? I would be like, well, which way do I want to be? What state of being do I want to reside in? And what's it going to take to get there? And so it was just finding out the two, and becoming a parent was a fast pass for that. That was the master class, and I'm still in the middle of it. I haven't passed yet. I get a not yet for that, because I'm constantly learning as they grow. But I'm realizing, am I getting what I need from people by being in a certain state? And then working on set. Again, I go back to Hollywood because I would be of service to all these people with my heart on my sleeve, and I get this wicked energy sometimes, once in a while. I learned really quick how to alchemize that and transmute it. And I learned the art of the delivery, like how I delivered myself, and time and a place. That's something I work on with my son, a time and a place for who you are and the energy you put out there, because it can get on it can get under someone's skin. So you have to navigate. So just being on set and working on all those people for all those hours, I learned the art of balancing energy and transmuting, alchemizing. Am I going to have a good day or bad day today? Okay. What am I going to bring? And then I watch someone come to me and I'm like, whew, this is going to be a goodie. You can just see them. Their day is here and something's going on. And somehow by the end of my time on set, I everyone was soft. Like they change, and I'd be like, oh, I think I had a part in that. Like, and then I became hired for that, for bringing a certain energy on set to make it a peaceful day and a high vibe day. And I only worked with certain directors that would really see me like that too. When I was be used and abused on set, I'd be like, motherfucker, I could do so much more than this. Like, you know what I can do. And then other ones would be like, whatever money you need, budget, whatever you need to make it work, to make you comfortable so that you can just be you, because you being you is enough to make others like lose their troubles and have a good ass day. And then they'd have a good shoot. We'd always be done on time. They'd come in under budget. I'd always give a budget back, and they'd be like, yes. And I knew that has everything to do with energy and alchemizing energy. And so I was like, we all got power. And I'm like, we all have this. We all have it. And usually by the end of my set days, I'd have a little gathering at my table. I also drop red pills. I'd be talking about what's going on in the sky or what's going on. Geopolitical eras was epic. Because I would always be really cheeky about it. I would go, can you believe it? Peace in the Middle East. Like, this guy, blah, blah, blah. I go, yeah, but did you see? You probably didn't, because you only saw the short little thing on TikTok, but he was actually in all these countries and he was shaking hands. North, South Korea. Like, I'm delivering information in a kind way while handing someone a really delicious smoothie. And they'd be like, no way. I didn't know that. Then you see them go look on their phone and they're quiet all day, like researching. So big work.
Well, I love the example you were giving there, because it's something Spinja and I have talked about, and she's the only born here citizen. Like, she works with a lot of people from a lot of different places, and it's often a very solemn or quiet. It's not hostile by any means, but it's very quiet. Not many people interact. But when her and her colleague, who is directly in front of her, who is from China, get in a certain rhythm,
Uh-huh.
her friend will acknowledge the fact that time has changed,
Oh,
right? Because
wow.
they're
Yeah.
vibrating at such a flow state that things slow down or speed up or whatever. But her friend is like, this, like, why, how are we done already? This isn't right. And then that'll get them going even higher. And like these people who usually don't really associate start getting drawn in almost like they're the energetic nucleus in this little corner. So I absolutely understand what you're talking about, how like you're that light or you're that energy, you're the electricity that something's going to go, hey, that looks like what I'm doing. And you can
Yes.
literally just change it by
Yep.
your own energy. I,
Yep,
I just,
exactly. You can hear my
I
dog
love,
agrees too.
I'm surprised I don't know where my huskies are, but oh, they're in the yard, probably digging holes. Oh,
Yeah, totally. That time loss is real. Even in the classroom, when we had really good, successful days, it would be like over. And the kids would be like, oh, it's time to go. And I'm like, I love that. I'm like, oh, that's a good day when, Mhm. Um,
I just said, I am sorry. I have been mind wiped about 4 times while we've been having this interview. I've been trying to tough it out. What was I going to ask? Do you have anything else you want to go into? Because I just got,
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I'm getting nervous. I'm coming up to really getting ready for my curriculum, like planning my year next year. We don't go back till the second week of September. And I had a really great summer of a lot of talks. I've been out there a lot more than usual, not just guesting, but doing more of my own. And I have very supportive families. So I want to bring in even some more that I've been learning, and I'm trying to learn how to incorporate it. So I've been telling myself, once we go into the classroom, I'm really going to only have one day a week now to do stuff, whether it's guests, because I need family time, at least 2 days. And they gave me another day. We're usually at the center 3 days a week, and they asked if I would do a fourth. The parents are demanding it. So I'm like, okay, because I manifested more money too. And so I'm like, I have this meeting with them, and I'm like, can I pick an hour and just do more deep healing, like do some healing work or teach them something else that's off the books a little bit. I mean, other than that, I mean, they let me do that anyway, but if I get this added day, I'm going to have extra time to do extra work. And I know, Matthew Mornian, yeah.
yeah,
Um, I adore him. I have his book right here. I've been using since lockdown. I've been doing like scalar toning with my own kids and qigong and stuff. But I want to really make that more of a thing, like a full half hour of qigong or something, some bigger lesson. So I am excited to bring more of what I've been doing into the classroom. And so, but starting September, it's going to be a peek into my journey of what that looks like. So I'm going to be sharing, of course, keeping all the children's anonymity, private, but I am going to share what I do in the classroom. I'm going to share what's happening and how that works. And then having that community exchange of what should I try next and just share with people, because this generation it's exciting. It's exciting to not worry about the future. Finally.
you actually reminded me of something from the first time I got my mind wiped. How do the kids take to the alternative healings and the frequencies and stuff? Like, do they adapt to it fairly well, or like
Yeah.
resonate to it? Or
Totally. I think because of the frequency held, that there are a lot of like minds. So I remember, when this mom brought crystals and we're putting crystals everywhere, or I have the essential oils, or, if there's a bug bite and we do go natural and stuff, they're like, oh, my mom has that, or, oh yeah, we do that. And then when we had our garden hour, we did this whole, we had a garden farm journal, but we would fill in things that we can find in the planet that help us heal, and they each had contribution to share. Oh, my mom puts this salve on me and it has this and this in it, and then we write it on the board. So they're naturally into it because of their parents. The ones that are very 3D subscribed and matrix subscribed, kind of, their kids are fascinated because they see their peers already have a touch into it. So it's not that they feel left out. They're like, oh, tell me. I want to know. I want to tell my mom. They're excited because it's such a good vibration there. But they also, the parents see their child come home happy, and you can't dismiss that. There's no stress. There's no, like you hear horror stories of kids that cry going to school, or even the school bus is torturous or something. These children are happy going and coming. So the parents that are very 3D matrix, they don't deny the fact their kids they're doing well. So they're usually just like, do whatever you're doing. And if they do ask questions, I just give some more. Like the one boy who I felt could have used a really good detox, I was just gently asking, have you ever considered, working on the heavy metals? And there's several things you could do. And if you'd ever like me or my assist, who's, really good cook, she does a lot of cooking in class, we'd love to share some things that worked for us. Not like, we think you need this, but we're like, hey, I went through this a little similarly. Would you like to try this? And just give her something for her back pocket. Because some of them are just seeing it's whatever's working, they want to know what it is. And so they're intrigued. And that's part of, again, spreading that awakening. So as far as other than that, the kids, there was one little girl that did come to me, and she's like, I'm not feeling so great. I go, okay. I go, and I assess her a little bit, and I go, would you like me to call your folks? And she goes, do you know what, Miss Heidi, can you just close your eyes and just tell them right now? And I'm like, absolutely. So I'm like just having a little meditation, talking to them. And they're like, I think they're hearing you. Yeah, my mom's sending healing. I'm going to be okay. Meanwhile, I didn't say anything. I said something to them in my mind, but then later I go hide behind my armoire and I'm texting the mom. I go, just so you know, your daughter has a tummy ache. She wanted me to tell you, but she says she feels your healing scent. And she goes, oh, I'm so glad she told you that, because I told her, just ask Miss Heidi to talk to me and I'll send you my healing. And I was like, oh, I love it. And so, yeah, it's really sweet. And then, last year when we were outside, we had a bunny come right in front of our class and seizure and die in front of us. And it
Oh,
was intense. Oh gosh. And then I have to tell you the other scary story. So as far as healing, so there were some like traumatized kids, but it led us into this beautiful discussion in our council about life and death. And, we don't know, could he have eaten something poisonous? I did insert a little, not, I don't think it's gaslighting, but I was like, hey, we have to really make sure we pick up all our garbage, because he could have choked on something, like, just remember, like, it might not have been us. It could have been at anyone at the learning center, or it maybe wasn't garbage. But if it was, we can prevent this from happening again by making sure we clean up. And the kids are like picking everything. So, but they witnessed that. We buried them. When we did our walk inside and outside the classroom, they'd say hello to him. And when he was buried, we noticed other critters would come out. I'm like, look, they feel so safe with us. And I did share with them about that animal dying. I go, he knew our frequency he came to us for help, and he was past the point. There was nothing we could do, guys. However, he knew this is a safe place for me to die. And if he did it anywhere else, the animals could tear him apart, but look at us. We found him, we mourned him, we buried him, he's safe. And they got the concept. And I had to tell the parents everything we did, because I don't know how they handle death like that. But here's a scary thing that happened. Sorry to keep going, but the same boy, the boy, the light, the fog, I had to call 911. He had we had a scary moment, and he is at his desk. And we did have some heat, but this wasn't heat related. And I'm looking at him, and he goes down on his desk like this with his eyes open. And I'm kind of used to this odd behavior, but I'm watching it intuitively. I was like, holy shit, what's happening? Meanwhile, there's all the kids are watching me, do this lesson. And I'm watching him, and my assistant wasn't there. She walked someone to the bathroom. I see her coming up the hill, and I go, Miss Samantha. And I just like pointed to him. And then all of a sudden we saw drool. And that's when I said, class, hold class. And I ran to him, and I'm smacked. I'm calling his name. He's having a seizure. And all I did was turn around and look at these kids with my face. And I went, guys, I need you. I need you right now. Gather yourself. And within moments, those children said, "All right, everybody, for Tony." And they're giving him this love. They're putting their hands on their heart. They're giving him love while they're saying, "Get your pens and papers, or pencils and papers, and we're going to the teepee." And they ran to our teepee, and they said later, they told me they put themselves in a sacred council circle, and they just put in the paper these feelings for Tony, or I just these good feelings for him. Meanwhile, we called, I immediately had to, because we're spread out on campus, I got the admin to call 911. She's talking to the paramedics, they're there, I'm calling the parents. We had him spread out. Our instincts took over. We put salt in his mouth and put him on his side and did this stuff, but traumatized the crap out of me. But I remember then a teacher saw us through the window. She came out. I said, "The kids, go get the kids." And she ran to the tent, and she opened the tent, and she saw them in circle. And she said, "I didn't have to do a damn thing. I just held space with them because they were doing all the work." And what they did, take him away. We found later, the parents said this has happened two different points in his life, and it was after he had these wellness visits. And he came back, he took a week off, and then he came back, and it was all about welcoming back to the classroom. But I tell you, the magic those kids had, they didn't drop in fear. My assistant and I were more fearful than them. We were just like, whoa, like throwing water on it. Like, dude, we didn't have the training either. So we're like, we want to feel trained in this. Because we don't want him to look at him as a liability either. We want to be prepared for this kind of situation. And so they found out severe inflammation in his body, which was the intuitive hits of the detox, and his white blood cells, there was something going wacky with that. So he was getting blood work done. But those children, they called a circle. They called themselves into a frequency, and they just thought of him. And so, isn't that beautiful? So yeah, the healing thing very well. I didn't teach them
That,
that. They did it themselves.
like, you actually had me welling up. That is amazing. Like, those
Isn't
kids are
it sweet?
wonderful, and I've never even met them. You mentioned the word awakening earlier, and I was just wondering, you are a very spiritually aware person, and what would you say if somebody like me that 8 months ago just popped online and realized there's an entire universe going on around you that you had no idea because you were just doing your 9 to 5 and trying your best, and then you're like, holy crap, there's a metaphysical universe, there's what would you say to that person that inboxes you like, what am I doing, what do I do?
I I say, tell them to clean up their meat suit so that they can feel where to go with their guidance of what hits they get. Because I remember my mom telling me when I was young, that she couldn't stop getting information. Like, she would hoard it, and when she'd think of a book, she'd walk into a store and it would fall on her head. Like, that's how much in her face it was. She'd be up all night, didn't sleep, but she didn't care. She's like, "I have to take this information in." Now, I love my sleep, but yeah, if you're getting this call to you, something is hitting you, it's an activation. Follow it. Like, go for it. Nose dive. Like the people that I even got information from back in the day, that I would get these rabbit holes with, I don't even align with some of them anymore. But at that time, it was everything I needed. So you take these pieces of information through your journey and compile your own human experience, your own story, your own awakening, and go for it. Like find the channels, get the words. That's another reason why I will never totally poo poo tech, because it's like we get all this information from it that we need. It's a tool, and so we need to utilize it, not have it utilize us. Ooh, I just had this big huge wave go down. I'm like, what is happening? You got some crazy viewers, I think, coming in.
Oh, oh, I just got mind wiped again, damn it.
There must be, this is a presence.
Yeah, there's something going on.
I don't get hit that hard. Did I have too many B vitamins? That's what I'm starting. I mean, I'm sweating too.
uh, I gotta ask you to repeat what you just said at the end there.
Well, to
Yeah.
dive into, follow who they're following. Like, I remember when I started uncovering Max Spears stuff, I couldn't stop. And it
Yeah.
led me to one thing, to another thing, to another thing, to another thing. And I also found I couldn't talk to my people yet because I didn't have the information put together enough. I looked like a crazy person. I remember calling my sister, and I was drinking at the time. I was had red wine. And I called her. I go, "Holy shit! There's underground tunnels, and there's an intergalactic slave trade center. They're taking children off planet slave." And she's like, what? And but today she's alive. She found her own rabbit hole. So it's not up to me at my speed of my awakening to give someone that information. They have to seek it themselves because I lost family members. I lost a lot of people because this mania that I was taking in not only resonated, it was opening up things in me that were I'm watching this happen in real time. But I realized someone else is not going to be ready for that. And you can't make them ready for it. So that's the whole promise of finding your tribe. You find people that think like you and you slowly check the waters because you need to be supported, but it shouldn't stop you from researching because you just have to like write it down, keep it to yourself until you can kind of compartmentalize whatever that word is, everything.
Compartmentalize
You know?
that.
Yeah.
Um, I love what you said there because something I've said a fair bit too. Is I think what's going to happen if we ever want the truth is like if we all stop arguing, where everything overlaps and where everybody's story lines up is going to be the closest we're ever going to get to the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying, like Spin calls it get in, get out. Like she went into the 17th letter thing and she learned some great things and went down some amazing rabbit holes, but that doesn't resonate with her anymore. So she just took that away. Right. And that's what she's taught me to do. And
Mm-hmm.
you were saying about people resonating with you. I feel horrible for her because when I got activated, I came online and I get downloads all the time. This poor woman has had to find me online friends to understand what the hell I'm talking about half of the time. Because when you're sitting there trying to crochet and your partner goes, "Hey, do you want to know how the universe might work?" It's kind of a big subject. So there's always a passenger on your ride too. So exactly what you're saying is you can't force people into understanding everything you are. Sometimes your partner has to find you playmates because it's like,
Yeah. Yep.
well,
Yep. Yep.
even with my own mom, when the whole SSP thing started, um, I tried to explain it to my mom, and she's like, not wanting to be discouraging because she knew I was going through something. She's like, I know about Sylvia Brown. I'm like, good enough. That'll work. That's the premise. You understand what's happening. Mine's happening in a parallel existence, not a past life, but you get it. So and I
Something.
knew that was at her age the best I could hope for acceptance for her to possibly understand that part of my consciousness exists in an alternate reality, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a common ground, right? Yeah, it's something. It's common. And that's what's happening. There's this thing happening where people are just starting to question their own reality. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I was in all, the 17 letter too. I was very cheeky about it because I learned the art of the delivery, but I was really like pushing that information and it backfired. It was like, no, I was like, this is not, yeah, there's flies. I was not it didn't work out. I still align with it because but I put it aside. I'm like, yeah, that resonates so deeply. I get it. I see the puzzle. I see the picture. I got the drops. I found, follow the right rabbit. And then I put it over here. I'm like, cool. And I go, now I'm over here, which is your body, your meat suit healing, getting in tune, tapping into this energy source yourself and playing with it in the 3D. Like, what are you doing out there in the world? We've learned all this stuff is happening. So, what is your part? What are you doing to be out there to shift things? Like, we're the shift, I feel. I don't feel like I'm not waiting for something because I feel like I'm shifting something daily. And that goes with activating others, like children or whoever, and reminding myself all the time, bringing it back to one because we are bombarded with everything. We're getting blasted. And so we constantly have to be clearing ourselves to be able to tap into all that stuff again. So it's constant work. It's we're always working.
I think for myself too, like I'm glad And I absolutely love everybody in the SSP community, and any one of them is welcome on my show. And I love talking to them because it's very therapeutic for me because it's something I've experienced. But it also popped me into a state of awareness because as soon as I understood that that was a stage of my consciousness, I was like, well, if that's real, then a lot of other things are probably real too, like UFOs and ETs. And that's where my head just went. And I was like, well, now I need to know about everything. I need to know about energy healing. I need to know about past life regression. I need to know about interdimensionals. And that's where this whole thing has started and gone from there. So I do feel I've been kind of blessed in that way that I didn't get stuck in a niche in the paranormal because I'm getting to see all the different aspects because like I've talked to people that have Steve Stockton, he does the missing persons thing, like where people are missing in the national parks and all of that. Like I've
Mhm.
gotten to talk to people in all different spectrums of the paranormal, and it's an
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful thing. And I'm starting to see where a lot of this stuff does line up.
Right? Yeah, same, same. Like going to those things with my mom when I was little and Conscious Life, the first one, it was like 2001 or 2002 here in LA, Conscious Life Expo. When she would fly out, we'd start going to that. I remember when some of these big players were just free workshops in the back room. And it's you evolve with this. And my awakening on my own journey has been I've been interested in certain things at certain times. And it's been all part of my own plan. It's my own show that's playing out. So I'm always thankful. I don't I instead of being like, I used to like them. Like Marianne Williamson, I used to go to her all the time. And I'm like, I don't align with her anymore. But you know what? It was amazing when I went. I would have something would happen to me when I go. And then I know it no longer serves a purpose, but that was beautiful. So, but I've been able to, like you, try all these things, like try all these subjects. I don't pigeonhole one community. If someone's like, what's your channel? I'm like, a little bit of everything. I'm just looking at the optimistic perspective of all of it. The Bigfoots, the Dogman, the ETs, the healing, the sessions, the teaching, like it kind of is all because it's everybody's experience. And that's what I'm fascinated in. So yeah, it's fun that we get to tap into all those things without too much judgment. And we just know, oh, I'm supposed to be learning this right now. This is what I'm supposed to do right now.
It it really is like a completely different education, and it's not something I expected to be doing, like heading for the end of my 40s, like all of a sudden realizing the whole rest of the universe exists. So if you are at the stage of just kind of rubbing your eyes, go very easy on yourself because like there was a point where I got so far into it, Spinja had to ask me if I was psychologically okay because
Oh,
it was
okay.
getting
Yeah.
it was getting bad, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
please go easy on yourself if you're listening. Like, don't
Yeah.
you don't have to obsess over it because it can happen and it can hurt you more than
Don't
help
have to
you.
know everything all at once.
Yeah.
You don't, yeah, exactly what she said. Don't know everything at once. And when it has to do even with some of the dark stuff that's going on there that really starts to make you walk out in the world like, what? Make sure you have a support system in place, like someone that does get it. And that's where social media, I think, is great. We do find some tribe, and there are ways that you can talk like we do, that you can get a read on somebody and be like, okay, no, this is are you a good witch or a bad witch? Are you on the good side? Are you just here to milk my energy? Or are you really like, you feel into somebody and then you can communicate with them and feel supported so you can go a little deeper. But yeah, yeah, I was a single mom at that time. That was a rough time. And lo and behold, my son was having a horrible time. So I was not, yeah, I was bringing all that crazy dark energy in. So yeah, it's tricky to navigate, that's for sure. But if you feel called that you have to figure this stuff out, explore it. And if you can, find something local happening where you can meet up with people in person, because that does change a lot of things too. When I started hosting gatherings here in LA, it changed everything for me because we did feel like we were really championing this whole like thing of like, we got this, and then sure enough, when this crazy time came in our world, we felt so balanced and we felt so safe and protected. And we're like, we got each other. We're cool. We know the bigger picture here. And it took us getting together to brainstorm and go over data and stuff to really conceptualize what was happening, and not in such a way that was like this. We could see a bigger picture because someone else would bring something to the table. So meeting in person is really special too, or having a divine partner like you have.
And somebody that we've met in person and is starting to actually draw the community together here is Karen Holt. And I just love
Oh,
shouting
yeah,
out
you
that.
were saying.
She, she
Yeah,
is a
that's sweet.
wonderful woman. And she's actually the
Oh.
one where I'm marrying Spinja on the 5th of August, and it'll actually be live on YouTube. And
Yay!
Karen will be performing. Our friend from Typical Skeptic is actually going to be the master of ceremonies. Uh,
Yes, I remember seeing that. Yeah, he's gonna stream it too.
yeah,
Congratulations. What time again is it? We have a
uh,
frenectomy that morning.
it
What time is it?
is. It'll be 10 Eastern, so Central. I think that's
No, it's 9 a.m. Mountain Time.
9 a.m. Mountain
Now
Time.
Mountain. Okay. Okay.
Mountain. Okay,
So
yeah,
I think that's 8 for me. Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cool. How
but yeah.
exciting.
So yeah, everybody's invited to watch that, and I want to thank you so much for coming on, Heidi. I know we were kind of
Absolutely.
all over the place, but when
I love it.
two
Yeah.
people with so much to talk about, that's going to happen. I would absolutely love to have you back on sometime and get into it
Be
again.
honored.
Yeah.
Totally. I would be honored. Totally. Yeah.
And I'm going to say something. I'm honored because I've seen you turn down podcasts, and I appreciate you coming on mine because that makes me feel like I'm doing something the right way. So
Aw,
I
thanks.
really want you to know that I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. My
And
pleasure.
Spinja as well. She just said we both do.
Oh, I know. If you all haven't Canadian Spinja, the what episode with her, it was really special. But all your other episodes too. Both of you are doing big work, so I'm honored to support it for sure. And yeah, our communities transcend cliques and groups and things. I don't align with that. I never did in high school or anything. And when I see some of that, I just can't align very much with it. We got to we got to unite and share
I,
this knowledge. Mhm.
I think that's totally right. Is like see where everything overlaps, unite, and like you were saying, find your tribe, even if it's online, and then meet up because
Yeah.
we are the change. We're the ones going to do this. And I guess with that, I'll say thank you everybody for watching. I'll message you in a second, Heidi. I still haven't quite been able to figure out how to finagle shutting off a live on my cell phone. But if you want to say
Okay.
goodbye, thank.
Totally. I'll say yes. Yes. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I'll share this out too. So, yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.
Oh.